What's up, Nick? Let me know, man, how like the mic and sound and everything is, if you don't mind. I did my test run the other day, and it seemed okay. Just do some final camera setup. Cool, man. Yeah. If I get a little more space, I might try to go all out with a better mic. Right now, I'm just trying to be wireless and keeping it simple. So today, dude, man, we're gonna be delidding a 7900X and an 8600K, both of them with Rockitcool IHSs. The cool thing about it is the i9 one is unreleased. It's not out yet, and it looks super cool. I don't know if you guys could see that. It's all CNC copper, so you get better quality than Intel's just because you know, the extra smooth machining surface. This one I tried polishing it myself, so you'll see some kind of light scratching. I tried Brasso, which was too abrasive, and then I tried actually what James, the owner of Rockitcool, sent, and it actually worked a lot better. When he starts actually putting these in production, they're gonna have a mirror finish. He says that he's got the manufacturing down where he'll be able to do that. Same, from what I understand, same thing with all of the 1151 IHSs. I think he's going to be able to do mirror finish on those. I don't want to speak for him, but I think that might be the plan. Although they look really good as it is. I'm surprised, Nick, you haven't put something like insert 5.2 gigahertz 4790K. So with these, you'll see these super fine CNC marks. They don't affect performance, but it upsets some people, like, you know, it messes with their OCD or whatever. So I think he's going to be doing polished finishes on these. But I mean, you could run your nail across this and, you know, you don't feel anything. And my performance testing is that they're still better anyways. Just depends, some people have different opinions. Alright, now I feel a lot better, Nick. Thanks for putting that in there. So I think what we'll start with, we'll just get momentum on the stream. We'll start with the 8600K. My process has refined a little bit since the last delid video I did. I'm gonna just slide the camera up a bit. So this will give people a chance to kind of see what I'm doing differently. I really feel that I have the process down. Like, I mean, basically it's as good as it gets, especially from a perspective of like knocking out several a day. But I'm always open to learn. So anybody that might join chat or might be in chat that has different ideas, I'm all ears, man. Any way I could get better is it's a win for everybody. Cool, man. I'll have to look into that. The biggest problem back in Huntington Beach was like my workspace was so compact that it made it hard to have something like a boom mic. It's not much better out here in Vegas. Hopefully that changes in the near future. But because behind me I have a ton of space, but there might be like times where I'm stress testing like 5 systems at the same time, and that's kind of why that space is open. So the desk I'm working from now is technically my production desk where I do all my building, and then I move them over to a different area for stress testing. So we're using Rockitcool products today. This is their Delid tool. This one just happens to be white. I love them, they're great. I've had a chance to use the Bauer one, and that one's awesome too. It's just, it's super hard to get in the States, and same thing, I met him at CES and he's such an awesome guy. I thanked him because he really kind of made delidding mainstream, along with like James over at Rockitcool, because I mean, James at Rockitcool is basically the way to get anything in the US. He manufactures all this stuff out there in Texas. But those two guys are awesome because they make it easy for us to do this stuff. So now that it's all clamped in, I just ran this screw up, and basically the little arm will push up against the metal IHS and slide it over, breaking the silicone seal that Intel has. Make sure it's nice and tight, not crazy tight, just nice and tight. Let's see, what camera angle will work best. So now I'm just tightening it up. Sometimes like at this point it gets really tight. I might back it off a quarter and then run it back in again, and we'll listen for the pop. Sometimes they're loud, sometimes they're not. And that's it. Man, delidding, dude, it's so if you're just running on a really mild overclock, or you're not overclocking at all, it's okay. Like if you're not overclocking, it's not really necessary. Technically it's not, but if you are overclocking, I think everyone should delid, whether you do it yourself or you have someone like me do it. Just because if you're gonna spend time stress testing and finding your settings, why not just go all out? Why settle for 4.7, 4.8? Why not try for 5 or 5.2? Because the labor on stress testing is the same. So, yeah, here we go. We'll go this way. That's the Intel stuff. I forget the brand they're using, but it's a thick enough layer that you could chip a piece off and see it. So next step, I'm just going to wipe this stuff off, and then we'll go ahead and get the silicone off the substrate. For that, I use these iFixit. They're technically prying tools, but they work really, really good at that. Sure, we'll use the Kimtech wipes. I'm almost out, but I got a new box off camera. For those, if there's anyone watching now or later, basically, my name's Anthony and I own and operate Remus Computer Solutions. I do some white label builds for other companies as well. I delid usually it's consumers that I do delidding for, but I'm starting to get companies interested in the delidding process. So it's kind of interesting how it's turned into, it went from like a really niche market to something that corporations are starting to look at. But I do builds, workstations, gaming builds. I do Delids. Just relocated from Huntington Beach out here now to Las Vegas. Yeah, you're totally right. And if you need silence, then delidding also comes in handy. Just because, you know, you could really turn things down as far as fan speeds. But a lot of clients I've had, they'll have like custom loops, and especially with Skylake, like I mean Kaby Lake was really bad. Like you had a 7700K, you might have had a 360mm loop. It still would have been challenging to keep cool. So let's get one of these off to the side. Normally I don't have a computer screen and cameras on the desk, so just trying to get my layout dialed in for the stream. I found it so much easier to now like remove the CPU from the tool, and I just use these silicone PCI Express covers that come with video cards. I just use these now to hold the CPU while I remove the silicone, and I just make sure that I'm not on top of any of the components down here. And that'll just go down the center, and then I'm gonna run this across the substrate. Actually, let's see, I'm off camera. I'll run it down like this, as opposed to like scooping. I'll just kind of like, let's see, there we go. I'll use the tool this way, and it works out really good. These tools are cheap enough that I'll only use them for a few CPUs and then just toss them. Looks like I'm going to be able to get this one all off in one piece. We'll see. Yep. There she is. And you can kind of see where the outline was of it. It's hard to tell. Maybe this one I could kind of see where the silicone was. I used to rub this off just for like a really nice show finish, but I now tend to leave this on because, especially while using the copper ones, it's easy to line up to see where everything's going to sit. So when I you'll see later on, but when I treat the copper with the liquid metal, I could kind of use this outline of the silicone as my reference as to where it's going to land. So I kind of just leave it like this now. I haven't had any issues with IHSs coming off. I mean, there's literally like no thickness to that. Actually, I'll probably do another pass down here just to make sure it's really cool, but other than that, I think it just helps with accuracy. Just down here, it looks like there might be a little bit of residue. Just very little came off. If you personally want to get that removed, it's not too bad. Like I just use these Kimtech wipes, and I'll just rub the substrate, and it comes right off. But now, when I sign the CPUs, I know exactly what area to stay in. I could find my blue Sharpie. So I'll label this. This is actually gonna be one of my personal test bench. But 8600K, and then I initial. and that's kind of what I'm going to be doing. I've been changing it throughout the times. I'll put different things like serial numbers or just model numbers, and I'll sign, I'll date, but I think all I need nowadays is just the year and the month, and then my signature with the processor. One thing that's totally not mandatory, but I personally feel it is to just let's see. There's 3 dots. Those 3 dots near the die. I just insulate that. We used to use liquid electrical tape, but just using nail polish at this point. Just talking to other guys, they say it seems to just be a more durable solution. I've never had issues with the liquid electrical tape, but this is easier to apply, so, and if the reports are that it's good, then I'm good with it. That's cool, and you just barely need any. You'll see when I do the 7900X, I put a lot more on because there's a lot of stuff I'm trying to insulate. But on this particular unit, we're not doing a whole lot. So now we're gonna switch it up. This is just something I do because I'm usually doing multiple i5s or i7s at a time, is that I have separate tools to just let them seal. So even though I'm only doing one today, I'm going to continue with that process. Okay. Just wipe the IHS, or wipe the die and the copper IHS one more time. I'm gonna be muting the mic at this point because I'm gonna blow these off just to make sure I don't have anything sitting on them. Guys, I'm gonna just turn down the AC a hair more. It's 77 in here, so we're gonna try to get it down a little bit. Alright, so now the fun part. I love using Liquid Metal Pro. For some reason, people like, you know, Ultra more. Ultra apparently was created because it's easier to apply. I have a perfectly fine time with Liquid Pro, and I prefer the packaging it comes in. The needle actually has a metal tip, and it's just more precise. I'm cool with Thermal Grizzly's Conductonaut, except I really hate the way they package it. It's just messy, and I find it wasteful. Alright, so the needle's a little hard to push, so sometimes I'll move off the CPU in case it blobs out. And then I'll just kind of, basically, I'll just dab the dye a little bit until it kind of sticks to it. I see like one piece of lint. Hold on a sec, guys. That's better. And then what I now do, it's a little different. So the Rockitcool IHS for 1151, it's notched. So this goes toward this side goes towards the top. So just make sure when you're applying liquid metal to the copper, you're making sure the orientation's correct. So I now actually put a small amount on the IHS as well, a dot. I used to just try to reuse this guy. I'd apply it onto the dye and then I just go straight onto the copper. Now I just put a dot on both, so I don't need as much on the dye. You know, it's just the same amount of liquid metal basically, but now I'm just spreading it across the two surfaces a little more evenly. And then I also blow off this guy to make sure there's no lint. They're supposed to be like lint free, but you know, it's just a little extra precaution. Okay, so at this point I'm just gonna kind of spread things along in circular motion. There's absolutely like zero reason to use tape. I don't know why some guys do it. You could see there's no like, I mean, if you're, I mean, I don't know under what circumstance you would need to use tape, but if it makes you feel more comfortable, by all means, use tape around the substrate. But I just don't see how it's necessary. Got a phone call. Sorry, guys. So now that the die has it, this is why I like the outline, because I could kind of line it up and see how it's gonna sit. So I don't actually like spread it out further than necessary. I would say this key is like critical. What I'm doing at this moment, it's critical to get a good like contact, like a good surface contact with the liquid metal. If you don't do this, it's not going to bond as easily to the IHS. I want to add to you guys, this is my first stream in about a year. It's been a long time. So thanks for watching. So now I got basically the area. I'm just going to kind of, you know, just line it up, make sure the height is going to cover the whole die, and then make sure the width will cover it. And then I'm just going to make sure everything's nice and square because, I don't know, a little OCD with that stuff. And then the final step is actually, now we're going to like reseal it. We're going to put this part of the tool on. The way I do it, and I've seen people do it differently. Some people use glue, like literally they'll use super glue. I like to use actual silicone. I just have it in this handy dandy syringe, and then we'll just apply it onto the IHS. And if there's a part of the step that is always improving, it's this part for me. Um, I do 4 dots at each corner, and then I intentionally go over this lip, the milled lip. I'll purposely go kind of like diagonal. And then I've recently started just adding a little bit in the center, but I try to keep as little as possible so there's no extra thickness. One thing people don't notice as well is that there's an actual gap. If you put the copper literally on top of the die with nothing on it, there's gonna be an air gap between the substrate and the actual copper. So if you just put a thin enough layer of silicone, you're not really doing anything that's gonna worsen temps. If you put too much, I could see that being the case, but you know, if you just have the right amount, you're good. And then by having lines, it's gonna spread, so there's no need to like really kind of spread it out more. You know, just do the line method like I did and you're fine. A little thing I do is I'll use a quarter on top of the IHS, and that's to help get the clamping pressure along the outside, because the tool itself, it's a little, you know, I don't know, this might be like half an inch or a little over a quarter inch, but I want the surface area of this to actually be as wide as the quarter, so that's why I use a quarter. And then even the way I clamp down on this thing, you know, I do everything kind of methodically, or whatever the word might be, excuse me. But I clamp down all the way, kind of tight. I back off. I'll do it about 3 times, and then I'll settle with whatever pressure I think is right. I think the torque spec is good and tight. Good and tight is the translation to English. So there we go. That's it. This stuff dries so fast. I would say if you're in a rush, within 30 minutes you're good to use it. And then we'll start on the 7900X next, because that one's a lot more time consuming. That one I charge more because it takes more time. It's not necessarily like the liability, it's just the time it takes me. This stuff is all reusables. I don't try to really reuse stuff. It's all cost, you know, it's cheap enough where I'm just gonna use a whole new one for the 7900X. So one thing, guys, with the 7900X is that I have oil that kind of, there's a couple things I do to the Rockitcool tool. James is awesome. He's actually, I think he's going to be doing this on all of them, but he listens to feedback, and One thing I kind of mentioned, and I guess other guys have, has been that there's so much pressure going along the 7900X that one thing that happens is when you're tightening this thing down, they'll kind of like, let's see, it's hard because everything's black, but you'll see it kind of like shift. This is a, you know, it's over dramatic, but you'll see kind of this action going. So what he did is he countersunk these screws, and that helps so much to keep things like aligned. The other thing I do is I marked out where this screw bottoms out, so I know like if I'm bottomed out and it didn't pop off, you know, I should probably just back out all the way, make sure everything's tight, and then go in it again. But I haven't had to do that. It's just to let me know like, hey, I still have some more space to keep going in, because there's a lot of pressure. I also added oil where the screw pushes against the aluminum, just to kind of reduce friction there. But you know, it's just expensive CPUs, so you want to make sure you're doing everything you can to have the process go smoothly. This 7900X has actually been tested because I'm kind of curious how performance is gonna be. The 7900X is kind of weird because if you do a really good stress test on it, they get so hot. I just don't know how people run them at 4.6 gigahertz. So I'm just trying to refine everything I do with the i9 series. Whether that's my overclocking process or the Delid process or whatever. That's the tricky thing about these, because they get hot. So again, we're lining up the marks. There's the triangle mark when you insert it in the motherboard. I don't think these cameras are high enough definition to really pick up on it, but you just line things up. Same thing as the 8600K. We're gonna just screw this in. The difference is these are countersunk. He includes a tool like an Allen wrench for these countersunk screws. I'm just using this kind of setup because I could run it in quicker. Alright, so I always like to manually push it up against the IHS and then I'll screw this in. Okay, now if you guys all want to hold your breath with me. Let's see, where's the angle at? And there it went. Again, before the bottom out section, but very close. That's why I'm so glad he did the countersunk screws. It just helps you get all the travel you can out of it. One thing I'm excited about the IHS for the i9 series is because these things do get hot, they need every bit of help they can get to keep them cool. Another thing is that, dude, it's a pain in the butt to clean off the i9 IHS. So if I could use a new one, great. That tool we used, guys, to scrape the silicone off, it's how I'm gonna get the IHS off. I'm gonna put my finger down on the substrate and just kind of try to work it free, because it's the seal's been broken, but it's very like it might be just touching a hair, and just helps get the silicone to separate. Oh yeah, Nick, you got yours down pretty shiny when you lapped yours. So here we can see the silicone, there's a layer of silicone on the outside, there's a layer, and then also on the inside. What I've been doing with success has been, I'm just putting some on the outside here. I tried doing it once on the inside, just kind of like a line here and a line here, but it seemed to be the same as just doing a small amount here, so I kind of just do that. So these are so complicated that I'm always like analyzing when I do these to see like what can I do better or whatnot. So keep in mind the way these went on, the letters kind of go this way. We're gonna use again this new tool to do all the resealing. You could do it in here, but since I'm just used to, alright, I crack it open and I'll reseal it on a different one because I might be doing a few in the same time. But before that, we're gonna use our same trusty silicone GPU guards. On here we could see actually, this is my first time using the Rockitcool i9 one, so man, it's just, it looks super cool in person. I'll just want to be mindful, these are identical essentially. Whereas the i9, the i5 8600K, it's directional. These look like it's an identical replacement. So this will just go on like so. I need to actually clean this one off with alcohol still, just to make sure I got all the rubbing compound off. What's different with this one over the i5s and i7s is there's a lot more components to insulate. Again, it's not technically necessary if you're really careful with your liquid metal, but I'm shipping these out and you know, I don't know how many times they might get moved around. I don't want to chance anything, so I try to take every precaution possible so like clients can just pop them in and be ready to go. Not ever have to worry about getting a call one day like, you know, hey, it's not working. So we're now going to take off the silicone. I'm going to use the same method. You got to be super careful with these guys because there's tiny components on these two edges. They're literally like right on the silicone. So actually when I do this one, I'm going to take the headset off because I like to like do this with my glasses off so I could get in there. One thing I do plan on buying is like a magnifying glass kind of thing to avoid that, but for a few moments I'm going to have this off. If you ask questions, I'll answer them in a second. Alright, so basically got all the large portions. I'm just gonna blow this off real quick, guys. Just move this over to the side for now while I clean up this area real quick. The interesting thing about the i9 versus like i5, i7 is that I basically could only get one i9 out of these tools, whereas I could probably do like 4 or 5 i5, i7s with one of these before it loses its like dullness. I feel like the silicone they use is either thicker on these i9s or it's a different compound and it might be like just harder, but it's definitely different than the i5s and i7s. And we're out of that box. I'm just gonna go off camera and get another one real quick. So start a fresh box here. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna clean up the IHS at this point, the CPU, and then just move along with insulating the CPU and then also applying the liquid metal. We'll blow that one off as well. This one I'm just going to kind of clean up the surfaces a bit more than I did on the i5, just because I don't know if it's like the silicone's different like I mentioned or what, but it needs a little more cleaning. One thing that I do have, because I'm out here in the desert, is I have a humidifier running in here too. It filters and humidifies the air. Coming from the coast, humidity was never an issue. If you do something similar, guys, and blow off the processor, make sure you're pushing down against it. You don't want it... Oops. Headphone users, I apologize. You don't want the air to get under the CPU and pop it out. That's why I apply pressure. So the substrate's clean. I'm just going to clean the die now. And then we're going to insulate the components with the nail polish stuff. It's the nail polish top coat. It's that clear stuff. Alright, soon the fun will begin. So we're just going to insulate all these components. It's hard for you guys to see. I need to upgrade cameras, guys. I apologize. But you can see all these little components around the die. We just need to insulate them. We need to insulate those guys to make sure if liquid metal does run off to the side, that it's not going to short anything out. I think Gamers Nexus had one short out, and they were able to wipe it off, and the CPU still worked. But we want to avoid that. And you could see like those small little components. Look how close to the silicone that was. I mean, if someone wants to request like a super clean finish, I could do that. I used to do that on all of them, except I found it was honestly a waste of time. And I actually kind of, I mean, it's removed. Like if you run your finger across it, it's so thin you can't feel it. But obviously I have gloves on, but if you run your bare finger over it, the thing is it shows like a good template, kind of like where things went. So when I now go to line this up, I'll kind of see where everything goes, and I'll be able to judge where the die is on this surface. So when I coat it, we're good to go. So now let's do the nail polish stuff. You gotta be careful with this stuff because it's kind of thick and it'll go on like nice, but over time it spreads out a little bit. So you don't want to put too much. And actually, like I did with the silicone, I'm going to take the headset off so I could really get in there and focus. Alright guys, so that is now... Hey, what's up Storm? Thanks for coming in, man. So now you kind of see... let's see. You kind of see there's a thin layer of nail polish over all the components. Now we'll get to do the fun part of liquid metal. And like we did with the 8600K is we're going to apply some to both surfaces. Ooh. Shot out a little bit. Such a large die though, I'm less nervous about that on the 7900X than the i5s. We might need to add a little more. We'll find out in a second. So again, we're gonna use these brushes, but I'm gonna blow it off to make sure there's no lint or dust on them. I'll turn off the mic again. Alright, so now we're just I'm gonna spread this along in a circular motion. Same with this guy when we get to him. We're gonna just remember like, okay, the die runs this way, so we're gonna just try to rectangle out this way. You don't want to go like the wrong way. It's not really showing up on camera. Maybe I could do this, guys. Let's see, it's not showing up a whole lot either. Yeah, it's not really being helpful. I'm trying to show you guys what I'm actually doing, but these 1080p webcams are only so good. I'm just outlining the die right now. Okay, so yeah, whatever, we'll just put this back where it was. Basically, the whole die is now coated, and I'm just gonna go around it one more time. So we should be good with the amount that's on there. So we gotta remember things are gonna go on like this. So I'm gonna spread the liquid metal across the same way that the die sits. And this is where it's gonna come into play as to like why I like leaving that slight outline where the die sits, because now I'll be able to put this up next. So this is what it looks like right now. Kind of see how things are. Now I could kind of sit this along and say, you know what, I'm going to need to go out a little more this way. Right now when I hold it in this position, I'm just concerned with the width. So I need to go out a little bit. Then when I hold it up this way, I'll know if I went out like far enough. So we just need to make this whole rectangle a hair bigger. And I'd rather have this that I'm doing right now be bigger than smaller than the die. Because this is what's going to help make the two surfaces like bond. thermally bond. So let's do this one more time. Okay, I'm gonna want to go up a little more, and then we're good on the width over here. Just square it up a little bit more. Just go down a little farther. We'll go up a little more. So this is a 7900X. They actually get bigger. The 7980XE is an even larger die from the extra cores. It's not like 7900X isn't like a cut down 7980XE because the dies are actually different. I've never delidded a 7980. I've done a few builds, but seems like I've only done 7900X's and like 17820. I'll get inquiries about doing 7980s, but they never come to be. Okay. Now I know I'm gonna just check this one last time. Good one, Nick. No, that is Nick Storm. I forgot what James's name is, or Josh's name is on this. So, but he's on too. I don't think he's watching today though. Okay, so we look good. Everything looks good. The nail polish looks cool. Liquid Pro looks cool. Now we're just gonna put this handy dandy guide on and get some silicone on this bad boy. What's inside the tube is actually it's Permatex The Right Stuff. That should cover it. Alright. So I'm just gonna double check to make sure I put this on correctly, but it should be bottom. So yeah, this will be the bottom and that's the top. Never be too safe when dealing with like $1,000 CPU, especially when it's not yours. Alright, this fits perfectly. Another thing I do, guys, is I manually apply pressure down. Like, I didn't comment on it with the i5, but I do that on the i5s too. Push down firmly and try to like push things downward just to make sure everything's nice and square. For this we're going to use an American dollar coin. They're not easy to come by. I don't know why. I think it's fun to use currency rather than just buying a like washer or something. Okay. dab of silicone. Okay, we're cool. Let's see. I'll do heads up. And the reason I do this is because I want as much clamping pressure from this guy to go to the outside edges. What's up? Is this John from California? JT? One day I'll switch to legitimate washers or whatever, spacers, but for now I kind of find it entertaining to use currency. So I'm gonna run this down a few times. I'm gonna look for the silicone to make sure it pushed out. And now I'm just gonna wait about an hour and she's done. So on stream. Oh, hey John, what's up, man? Basically we just did the i9 IHS. It fit perfectly within the template. No complaints, man. I just can't wait to see these, like, so I could just buy up like 10 or so of these. We did the 8600K as well. This will be going in my personal test bench. Actual Case Labs build. If Intel really releases the 8086K, I'm totally gonna throw that in. But for now, it's a placeholder. We'll be doing thermal testing on this one on the test bench. And if all goes well, we're gonna use this in that dual quadro GPU build. Excited though. If anyone has any questions, feel free to ask me or John in chat. I'm gonna try to do these streams more often, guys. Kind of like, I totally love how Puget Systems does it with man, I'm blanking out on his name. But the Beard of Wisdom, I know it's auxiliary is his handle, but I'm just forgetting his real name. Just kind of more like, hey, this is my day. I'm gonna just build something real quick. Or I might do a few Delids. I'll just stream them. Do you know what episode they use them on? I'm curious what that pressure pad is you're talking about. I haven't seen them use it. Literally one thing I was thinking about is just figuring out what thread this is and switching it with a bolt, and then I could use like they actually have Snap-on makes screwdrivers that are like torque wrenches. So I was thinking about getting one of those. I think they're only like $300 or $400. It sounds like a lot of money, but hey, like, so is $1,000 CPU. That's a lot of money too. So I'd rather have the tools. So once I kind of figure out what clamping pressure I like the most, then they could all be the same. Yeah, man. That will be fun to get on my next order from you guys. I'm on my personal stash. I got a few left, and then Bimbox, they have a few left, so we'll probably be ordering more in about a week or two. Yeah, Nick, let me know, man. If anything, shoot me a message on Instagram to let me know. I really appreciate what Gamers Nexus does in the gaming community, because they're taking a more scientific approach as to like just reviewing. So I learn from them. Sometimes their videos I may not completely agree with everything, but I definitely appreciate their testing methods and the documentation. because they're able to back their numbers up. So if anyone has any other comments, I'll keep it open a little bit longer. I'll be testing this tonight though. Yeah, I'll probably wait like an hour or so on this. This is technically like 30 minutes, I'll be good to go, but I'll just give it an hour to be safe. And we'll do before and after results. I don't have results for delidded with the stock IHS. I only did like bone stock, stock clocks, and then I did 4.4 gigahertz at like 1.15 volts, and with a 280 millimeter radiator, you know, just all in one. So I'm gonna now throw this in and see what happens. Temperatures, ambience, I'm a little cooler. It's like 75 degrees Fahrenheit. When I was doing testing, it was 78. So I'll probably turn up the thermostat to 78 like it was during testing, and go from there. Yeah, Nick, I think the community benefited from that. I'm glad they also called out NVIDIA or Ingredia, whichever you want to call it. I'm glad they called them out on that partner program. Dude, John, let me know, man, because I personally think it's cosmetic. I'm not even trying to be biased. I feel like it's gonna end up being cosmetic, but hey, if it makes a difference, outside of like margin of error, that's great. But I think where we're gaining is just like a flatter surface. I might lap this IHS just to show how uneven it is. I have my lapping block in the garage. Actually, it might still be in storage, but I know when I've done like i5s and i7s, you'll definitely see high and low spots. It'd be interesting to use a micrometer or something to kind of like figure that out more scientifically than that, but you know. But hey, if anything, it'll look nice. I would love to get laser etched IHSs as well. I just don't know if you could do that on copper. It'd be cool to like pay a premium to have some sort of branding on it. Cool, guys. I think that'll be a wrap. If you guys have questions about anything I used, from like the syringes to like these brushes or whatever, feel free to hit me up on either Twitter or Instagram. Screen name is RemisCS, so REMISCS, basically for computer solutions. And I'm happy to share. I mean, I'm not afraid of competition. Because at the end of the day, like, the consumer wins. I'm showing you guys how I do it, so you guys have confidence when I do a delid for anybody. You know what you're getting, and I don't know if other people doing delids do that besides reviewers. So yeah, I'm totally in agreement with you on the IHS. When you lap them, it definitely shows. It's funny, Der Bauer lapped the actual die, and one thing that was interesting, because this might come up, like people might say, like, I still have hot cores. I still have some cores that are hotter than others. So when Der Bauer lapped the actual die, there was high and low spots, but the hot and cold cores didn't change. They stayed the same. They just got cooler. I think the peak drop was like 5 degrees Celsius. So the question was, if you went direct die, would the cores, the hot and cold cores, stay the same? Or if he was using an IHS like yours, like a Rockitcool one, if the hot and cold cores would stay the same or not, because I've found hot and cold cores kind of tend to still be there. I think it's just in the quality of the core. You know, maybe one's leaking more voltage than the other, and that's why you get that spread. But the difference with delidding and using copper IHS is it's just to get the temperature down in a meaningful way. I mean, you delid and use a copper IHS, you're going to get better results than going from air to liquid cooling. If you haven't done a delid on like Skylake, Cabby Lake, Coffee Lake, I mean, if you really want cool temps, you should delid and then go water. But Coffee Lake is not nearly as bad as Cabby Lake was. Cabby Lake was horrible. But alright guys, I'm gonna call this a stream. Yeah, exactly. What's funny, John, like the peasantry hut in here, I did his delid using your tool, but like, dude, he's got like beyond gold. His Devil's Canyon is like platinum. I think he could do like 5.2 or 5.3 gigahertz, and on an all-in-one, I think his 5 gigahertz is like 1.18 volts on Devil's Canyon, like a 4790K. It's not even an i5, it's an i7 with all threads. I'm like, I was scared to delid that one because you just can't replace that. Other than that, man. Okay, 1.52 on air. Jeez. Yeah, I mean, for Devil's Canyon, that's pretty rare. Like, if you had 5 gigahertz, you were really good. I think like 4.8 was what a lot of people had, and then 5 gigahertz were like the good ones. But like 5.2, that's nuts on Devil's Canyon. Man, if you had that on like a 360 millimeter loop, yeah, that's really good for DC. How did that build go, Nick? I think you had that one chassis shipped to you. It's funny, I got the camera over here, but my screen is over here. I should probably switch things up. And actually, this is all being run off of the BH2 that's under the desk. I'm gonna be taking this apart soon and throwing in that i5. I should stream it. Yeah, but the 5.3 gigahertz at 1.488, well, the temps I'm sure had to have been hot at that point. So I'm wondering if it was just cooler temps, if it would have done 5.3. I mean, just for benching, but yeah, dude, 5.2, 5 gigahertz even, you're good. Dude, you need a power supply, man. Like, if I come up on a spare, I think I'm just gonna have to send it to you. Man, that's so many cables. I can't wait to play with these. I might try to polish the i5 one just to see how well that works, but I won't probably polish this one. I'll just probably polish one of the new ones I have in inventory. But the stuff that Rockitcool sent over, let's see, where did I put it? That stuff is great. Nick, I don't know what you used to polish yours. Dude, Nick, that's what I was thinking. I'm like, that could easily be a server build. Like, Silverstone has a few. There's an HTPC chassis I've used that you could actually buy rack ears for. Um, it wouldn't be the ideal for you chassis, but hey, it's cool. But anyways, Nick, let me know what you use to polish yours. I think I have that polishing compound in the garage that I got. Oh no, it's right here. They sent over Fitz polish, and I'm gonna buy. This is like a little trial pack. I'm gonna buy this stuff actually after using it. Just super cool. Did not scuff the copper one bit. Brasso, which I used, was pretty abrasive, so something that's nicely machined like this, I would not use Brasso. Dude, I'm happy to like contribute in any way with suggestions if you need them. Like, this has been a lifesaver. Putting silicone in these tubes. These are 10mm syringes. I'm gonna see what size I can get them. Like if I could get them a little smaller, maybe. For me, this works good, but if I were to package them for someone, man, I would say like 5 mLs would be more than enough. You could, even with 5 mLs, like I have this at 2, so I don't know if you could get like a 2 ml tube or not. But yeah, like it keeps it. It's been in here 2 days and it's not drying up one bit. It's nice and airtight seal. Rubber along here, and then these caps screwed right in. Oh, so it was just 1500 grit. You didn't like any. You didn't do any polishing, Nick. But as far as the syringe, and then this is a 14 gauge blunt end needle. I would like if they had 12, and I think I found 12 once, but they were substantially more expensive, so it's not really worth it. This is technically good enough, the 14 gauge. But yeah, I mean, I'm always trying to improve my process, so I'm always keeping my eyes open. Were you wet sanding on the 1500 grit? Because that's how I would do mine. I would do 1500 grit also, unless it was 2000. But I just wet sanded it on my marble block. Thanks, dude. Send me that video, and I'll go check it out. Guys, thanks for watching. Keep an eye on my Twitter feed. I'll post it on Instagram too, but my next videos, I don't know when it'll be. I might try to do a live build this week, but I want to try to start streaming a few times a month for sure. But thanks for watching, guys, and till next time.